On November 10th, Stillwater voters will consider the renewal of the current half-cent transportation sales tax through October 2026. Many cities choose to collect their transportation funds through sales tax because approximately one-third is paid by non-residents who work, visit, or shop in Stillwater. To reconstruct 2 lane miles of a city street, the city budgets about $1 million. Currently, the half-cent transportation sales tax generates approximately $4 million annually. The city manages 440 lane miles of pavement, 28 bridges, over 60 signalized intersections, more than 7,000 traffic signs, and 30 miles of bike lanes and bike share lanes. In order for the city to manage its assets through the transportation sales tax program, these projects are divided into 3 separate categories: asset management, safety mobility, and corridor improvement.
Asset management is basically, in the transportation department, what we do to maintain our transportation system. We have 3 major categories of assets: our pavements, our bridges, and our traffic signal system. All these things need regular maintenance and repair. It's a core focus of our
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Mini roundabout is a one-lane roundabout, and it's a yielding intersection. You don't need to stop unless you have to stop for a pedestrian or a car. We're willing to try out new ideas, and this is a perfect opportunity to try out something that's less expensive and is a safer alternative for a stop sign or a traffic light. We want to reduce the amount of potential accidents between pedestrians, vehicles, and bicycles, and also trucks. We do have trucks that go through that intersection as well. So we're trying to improve safety for everyone, and we're using a roundabout to do it. First of all, you start before you enter the intersection. As you approach the intersection, you look for the pedestrians, because the pedestrian crossings are actually pulled out a little ways from that roundabout. And then you can pull forward past the pedestrian point and start looking for the vehicles. And if there's no vehicles in your way, you can proceed into the roundabout. If there's a vehicle, you might have to delay a few seconds before you can enter. Once you are able to get in, pull in right behind somebody, or if it's empty, go in and then proceed counterclockwise, and you can make an immediate right if you're going right, or you can kind of go around the intersection just a little bit to go forward, or you can go complete or do a kind of a 270 degrees to be able to make a left-hand turn. Or some people might just want to go back into the downtown area so they could do a complete turn and go back the same direction they were coming.
Whether you are shopping, dining, or doing business in Stillwater, we would like to take the opportunity to let you know about public parking in 3 areas around Stillwater: downtown Stillwater, Campus Corner, and the Strip on Washington Street. In these areas, many of the free city parking spots, mostly in the street, are timed. Time ranges from 30 minutes to 3 hours Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and these spaces are not timed on weekends and city-recognized holidays. The purpose for these timed parking spots is to give everyone equal opportunity to a parking space, which is not only good for other people visiting these areas, but is a benefit to the businesses in these areas as well. Now, say for instance you're cited for overtime parking as you're inside a business. Well, instead of paying the $10 citation, you can easily bring it back to one of more than 200 businesses in these 3 areas to have the ticket validated. All you have to do is give them the ticket and that's it. They'll take care of the rest. For more information about public parking spaces, the validation program, or tickets, call the Municipal Court at the City of Stillwater at 405-742-8255 or visit stillwater.org.
This is Kyle Gibbs with the Stillwater Police Department. When parking in a timed parking space around Stillwater, you may notice a chalk mark on your tire. Parking enforcement uses the chalk marks to monitor vehicles. A parking attendant will mark a vehicle and return later to see if the mark is still present. If your parking time is almost up, move your vehicle to another spot. The attendant will notice the mark changed and faded and will not write a citation. If your parking time is almost up, do not attempt to remove the mark. Removing the mark will result in a fine of $549. This has been a public service announcement from the Stillwater Police Department and the City of Stillwater.
There's been a serious accident in Greenwich Village on West 10th Street. 12 firefighters have been injured. 5 are reported to be in serious condition and are hospitalized. The fire captain on scene said they were responding to a call that proved to be a false alarm. But looking at the injuries and all the damages, the captain told this reporter there's really no such thing as a false alarm. Your local fire department protects you. Take it seriously.
On November 10th, Stillwater voters will consider the renewal of the current half-cent transportation sales tax through October 2026. Many cities choose to collect their transportation funds through sales tax because approximately 1/3 is paid by non-residents who work, visit, or shop in Stillwater. To reconstruct 2 lane miles of a city street, the city budgets about $1 million. Currently, the half-cent transportation sales tax generates approximately $4 million annually. The city manages 440 lane miles of pavement, 28 bridges, over 60 signalized intersections, more than 7,000 traffic signs, and 30 miles of bike lanes and bike share lanes. In order for the city to manage its assets through the transportation sales tax program, these projects are divided into 3 separate categories: asset management, safety, mobility, and corridor improvement.
Asset management is basically, in the transportation department, what we do to maintain our transportation system. We have 3 major categories of assets: our pavements, our bridges, and our traffic signal system. All these things need regular maintenance and repair. It's a core focus of our program. Safety and mobility is how we make our transportation system work. First of all, we need it to be safe for all the users on the corridor, whether that's vehicles, freight, bicyclists, pedestrians, transit. And we also need those folks to have reliable movement throughout the city. Corridor improvements is where we put together asset management and safety and mobility on, say, a mile-long corridor or larger, where we're basically maintaining an asset, making it safe, and providing mobility for the future. Examples of this include recent reconstruction, say, of Country Club Road, upcoming projects that we have on Western Road and Perkins Road, where we look at those mile-long corridors to make widening and improvements.
Mini roundabout is a one-lane roundabout, and it's a yielding intersection. You don't need to stop unless you have to stop for a pedestrian or a car. We're willing to try out new ideas, and this is a perfect opportunity to try out something that's less expensive and is a safer alternative for a stop sign or a traffic light. We want to reduce the amount of potential accidents between pedestrians, vehicles, and bicycles, and also trucks. We do have trucks that go through that intersection as well. So we're trying to improve safety for everyone, and we're using a roundabout to do it. First of all, you start before you enter the intersection. As you approach the intersection, you look for the pedestrians, because the pedestrian crossings are actually pulled out a little ways from that roundabout. And then you can pull forward past the pedestrian point and start looking for the vehicles. And if there's no vehicles in your way, you can proceed into the roundabout. If there's a vehicle, you might have to delay a few seconds before you can enter. Once you are able to get in, pull in right behind somebody, or if it's empty, go in and then proceed counterclockwise, and you can make an immediate right if you're going right, or you can kind of go around the intersection just a little bit to go forward, or you can go complete or do a kind of a 270 degrees to be able to make a left-hand turn. Or some people might just want to go back into the downtown area so they could do a complete turn and go back the same direction they were coming.
Whether you are shopping, dining, or doing business in Stillwater, we would like to take the opportunity to let you know about public parking in 3 areas around Stillwater: downtown Stillwater, Campus Corner, and the Strip on Washington Street. In these areas, many of the free city parking spots, mostly in the street, are timed. Time ranges from 30 minutes to 3 hours Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and these spaces are not timed on weekends and city-recognized holidays. The purpose for these timed parking spots is to give everyone equal opportunity to a parking space, which is not only good for other people visiting these areas, but is a benefit to the businesses in these areas as well. Now, say for instance you're cited for overtime parking as you're inside a business. Well, instead of paying the $10 citation, you can easily bring it back to one of more than 200 businesses in these 3 areas to have the ticket validated. All you have to do is give them the ticket and that's it. They'll take care of the rest. For more information about public parking spaces, the validation program, or tickets, call the Municipal Court at the City of Stillwater at 405-742-8255 or visit stillwater.org.
This is Kyle Gibbs with the Stillwater Police Department. When parking in a timed parking space around Stillwater, you may notice a chalk mark on your tire. Parking enforcement uses the chalk marks to monitor vehicles. A parking attendant will mark a vehicle and return later to see if the mark is still present. If your parking time is almost up, move your vehicle to another spot. The attendant will notice the mark changed and faded and will not write a citation. If your parking time is almost up, do not attempt to remove the mark. Removing the mark will result in a fine of $549. This has been a public service announcement from the Stillwater Police Department and the City of Stillwater.
There's been a serious accident in Greenwich Village on West 10th Street. 12 firefighters have been injured. 5 are reported to be in serious condition and are hospitalized. The fire captain on scene said they were responding to a call that proved to be a false alarm. But looking at the injuries and all the damages, the captain told this reporter there's really no such thing as a false alarm. Your local fire department protects you. Take it seriously.
On November 10th, Stillwater voters will consider the renewal of the current half-cent transportation sales tax through October 2026. Many cities choose to collect their transportation funds through sales tax because approximately 1/3 is paid by non-residents who work, visit, or shop in Stillwater. To reconstruct 2 lane miles of a city street, the city budgets about $1 million. Currently, the half-cent transportation sales tax generates approximately $4 million annually. The city manages 440 lane miles of pavement, 28 bridges, over 60 signalized intersections, more than 7,000 traffic signs, and 30 miles of bike lanes and bike share lanes. In order for the city to manage its assets through the transportation sales tax program, these projects are divided into 3 separate categories: asset management, safety and mobility, and corridor improvement.
Asset management is basically, in the transportation department, what we do to maintain our transportation system. We have 3 major categories of assets: our pavements, our bridges, and our traffic signal system. All these things need regular maintenance and repair. It's a core focus of our program. Safety and mobility is how we make our transportation system work. First of all, we need it to be safe for all the users on the corridor, whether that's vehicles, freight, bicyclists, pedestrians, transit. And we also need those folks to have reliable movement throughout the city. Corridor improvements is where we put together asset management and safety and mobility on, say, a mile-long corridor or larger, where we're basically maintaining an asset, making it safe, and providing mobility for the future. Examples of this include recent reconstruction, say, of Country Club Road, upcoming projects that we have on Western Road and Perkins Road, where we look at those mile-long corridors to make widening and improvements.
Mini roundabout is a one-lane roundabout, and it's a yielding intersection. You don't need to stop unless you have to stop for a pedestrian or a car. We're willing to try out new ideas, and this is a perfect opportunity to try out something that's less expensive and is a safer alternative for a stop sign or a traffic light. We want to reduce the amount of potential accidents between pedestrians, vehicles, and bicycles, and also trucks. We do have trucks that go through that intersection as well. So we're trying to improve safety for everyone, and we're using a roundabout to do it. First of all, you start before you enter the intersection. As you approach the intersection, you look for the pedestrians, because the pedestrian crossings are actually pulled out a little ways from that roundabout. And then you can pull forward past the pedestrian point and start looking for the vehicles. And if there's no vehicles in your way, you can proceed into the roundabout. If there's a vehicle, you might have to delay a few seconds before you can enter. Once you are able to get in, pull in right behind somebody, or if it's empty, go in and then proceed counterclockwise, and you can make an immediate right if you're going right, or you can kind of go around the intersection just a little bit to go forward, or you can go complete or do a kind of a 270 degrees to be able to make a left-hand turn. Or some people might just want to go back into the downtown area so they could do a complete turn and go back the same direction they were coming.
Whether you are shopping, dining, or doing business in Stillwater, we would like to take the opportunity to let you know about public parking in 3 areas around Stillwater: downtown Stillwater, Campus Corner, and the Strip on Washington Street. In these areas, many of the free city parking spots, mostly in the street, are timed. Time ranges from 30 minutes to 3 hours Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and these spaces are not timed on weekends and city-recognized holidays. The purpose for these timed parking spots is to give everyone equal opportunity to a parking space, which is not only good for other people visiting these areas, but is a benefit to the businesses in these areas as well. Now, say for instance you're cited for overtime parking as you're inside a business. Well, instead of paying the $10 citation, you can easily bring it back to one of more than 200 businesses in these 3 areas to have the ticket validated. All you have to do is give them the ticket and that's it. They'll take care of the rest. For more information about public parking spaces, the validation program, or tickets, call the Municipal Court at the City of Stillwater at 405-742-8255 or visit stillwater.org.
This is Kyle Gibbs with the Stillwater Police Department. When parking in a timed parking space around Stillwater, you may notice a chalk mark on your tire. Parking enforcement uses the chalk marks to monitor vehicles. A parking attendant will mark a vehicle and return later to see if the mark is still present. If your parking time is almost up, move your vehicle to another spot. The attendant will notice the mark changed and faded and will not write a citation. If your parking time is almost up, do not attempt to remove the mark. Removing the mark will result in a fine of $549. This has been a public service announcement from the Stillwater Police Department and the City of Stillwater.
There's been a serious accident in Greenwich Village on West 10th Street. 12 firefighters have been injured. 5 are reported to be in serious condition and are hospitalized. The fire captain on scene said they were responding to a call that proved to be a false alarm. But looking at the injuries and all the damages, the captain told this reporter there's really no such thing as a false alarm. Your local fire department protects you. Take it seriously.
Thomas.
Oh, no. The gentleman from Norman.
Oh, yeah, oh, that guy. No, Thomas is, he was hired for economic something. Okay.
Oh,
At the
okay.
chamber.
Okay.
Young man. He was a kicker. He was
Okay.
there. Did their extreme sports sponsorship.
Some of them are very close, but anyway.
It's 7 o'clock.
I didn't know that.
You have to just rephrase what you said. Oh. No, it's not time yet. It's not time yet, is it? We're on? Oh. Good evening. On Tuesday, November the 10th, Stillwater voters will go to the polls to vote on whether or not to renew the 1/2 cent transportation sales tax. In preparation for this election, the Stillwater League of Women Voters are pleased to present this evening's educational forum to help provide answers to citizens' questions about transportation issues. I'm tonight's moderator, Gladine Allred, with the Stillwater League of Women Voters. And before I describe the format and the rules, I would like to introduce our panelists. City Councilor and Vice Mayor Pat Darlington, City Manager Dan Galloway, and Director of the Department of Transportation, Dr. Jason Peak. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
For the next hour, our panelists will be asked questions prepared by citizens who have emailed questions, by the League of Women Voters, and by members of the audience here this evening, and by you, the listeners. We have added something new so that people who are unable to attend the forum can become involved. So listeners are invited to call in questions during the forum at the number on your screen that you see above my head. That number is 405-332-6063. And a League member will answer the phone and take your question, which will be handed to the moderator to ask the panelists. Now, only written questions will be accepted. So if you in the audience have a question, if you think of something during the forum that you want to ask, raise your hand and a League member will provide you with paper and pencil. Questions will be screened by League members for duplication only. But questions should address transportation issues, which include the renewal of the 1/2 cent transportation sales tax, and questions about particular streets in town or walking or bicycle paths. No personal criticism will be accepted, and all panelists may respond to each question if they choose. Answers to each question will be limited to 3 minutes. To begin the forum, for clarification, Vice Mayor Pat Darlington will read the ordinance.
This is actually a paraphrase. Of the actual ordinance language. It's probably a little bit more understandable this way. This ordinance will approve a 1/2 cent sales tax for transportation projects for a period of 10 years, beginning on October 1st, 2016, and ending on September 30th, 2026. It authorizes the use of funds raised by the 1/2 cent transportation sales tax for transportation projects and transportation-related infrastructure projects as determined by the City Council.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Councilor Darlington. Okay, the first question. The 2001 ballot for the 1/2 cent transportation sales tax, and that was the initial one, had 15 specific projects listed. This person asked, why did that change in this ordinance?
Well, I think experience is a good teacher. I think we've proven that we don't have a perfect crystal ball. when we're looking forward to 5, 10 years, in this case looking forward to 10 years, I think Dr. Peak and his staff and those of us in the community, we have a good vision, I think the council does, of several major streets that we know today's traffic demands need to be improved, reconstructed, widened to accommodate the growth. What I don't know, and I don't know of anyone else that knows, is 5 and 6 years from now, where will the development have occurred? Where will traffic demands be increased? Where will we need to go 5 years from now? I think it would be a little bit overly optimistic to think we can tell you exactly what street will be needed most 6, 7, 8 years from now. I think we can identify now, and we have 4 or 5 major streets that need to be done in the next 5 years. I think we need to trust the city council to be able to work with our transportation staff 6 years from now and say, wow, we had a new shopping center developed we didn't know about. We had a major new housing development we didn't know about. It's created a demand on a street that we did not expect. We have the ability to improve that street to accommodate the public traffic. And so, since we don't have a perfect crystal ball, I think we can tell you what needs to be done in the foreseeable future, and we need to trust our city council to approve the most needed projects 6 years from now, 7 years from now. So it's a blend, and I think we learned that we had to do some projects that weren't the most high priority at the time because of those commitments, and so we don't want to force ourselves to repair the wrong road in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Galloway. Do either of you have anything to add to this question?
Sure. I would like to just add one point, is to remember in 2001, that was when the 15 projects were specified. The sales tax was also renewed in 2006. And at that time when it was renewed, there was priority given to those original 15 projects specified in 2001. But there was also language added to the ordinance similar to what is in this, that those sales tax funds had to go priority to the top 15, but could be used for other transportation projects. And that's why there's been 8 additional projects that have actually been funded out of the transportation sales tax, Country Club Road widening being one of those projects that wasn't on that original list that benefited from that flexibility in the 2006 ordinance.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct.
I think I can't provide technical information, but I think one of the surprising things that I've learned in the year and a half that I've been on City Council is the number of years of preparation that are necessary to prepare for a road and the expense that requires. You couldn't, I mean, please correct me, Jason or Mr. Galloway, but you couldn't be planning to fix a road and do all that pre-work if you didn't know that you were going to have the money to actually do the project when it came about.
Absolutely right. I mean, one example is we get a lot of questions about the 6 and Perkins intersection improvement project. That was a project that council signed an agreement with Oklahoma Department of Transportation in 2011. Here we are now in 2015. You see that utilities are being relocated, but construction's not going to start till 2016. So you can see that's a project that took literally 5 years to deliver, and it's just there's a lot of complexities in how we get these projects done, moving utilities, buying right away, those types of things, and so you need to have some flexibility. Otherwise, those funds are committed to a single project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the 5 years is not at all unusual. That's not an unusual time frame.
Especially with the state or federal monies involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, some people are afraid that, this person writes, that without a list of projects, these funds from this ordinance can be used for non-transportation items or transportation-related items like police cars or garbage trucks. Is that true?
Absolutely not. This ordinance is very restrictive, and the city council, the city manager, the street department director, none of those people would have the authority to spend 10 cents out of this fund for anything besides transportation. That's guaranteed by law unless somebody would like to take a visit to a jail. We just don't do that. I mean, we respect those restrictions in the law. And those restrictions in the ordinance that says that these monies can only be used for transportation related, that is a guarantee. That is a strong guarantee to the voters. And it's what I like about restricted designated taxes. It's the one place where it's very uncommon that you can point to 50 cents on your receipt of buying $100 groceries and say, I know that's going for new streets and sidewalks in Stillwater. And it's the only tax that's that specific, and it's guaranteed.
All right, that sounds related to this question that somebody wrote, emailed. Some people are opposed to this because they feel it's giving the city a blank check.
Sure.
Would we like? Could we do a blank check somehow?
No, but I guess I just want to build on Dan's comments about the sales tax funds. From an accounting standpoint, these funds are accounted for in a separate fund, and so it's designated for transportation. And then I heard this morning from one of the people at our coffee rounds. They don't care about how the sausage is made; they just want to know what kind of sausage they're getting. But we need to talk about the details so people understand. We budget every year. The Transportation Department makes a recommendation to the City Manager's office on what we see are the project needs to deliver in the next year. That gets rolled up into the overall city budget, and then that gets presented to the council for approval. And so the use of those funds basically goes through a vetting process on an annual basis. Are these the projects we need to be working on? Is that the right transportation expense for those funds? And it has to be tied to transportation.
I think another thing that you might notice next time you see an agenda posted, if you look at the quarterly reports from our financial officer, when we get the tax reports, there's use tax, there's the regular sales tax, there's transportation, half-penny tax, there's cigarette tax, there's hotel tax. It all comes to us already designated. That comes from Oklahoma Tax Commission?
Yes, the Oklahoma Tax Commission collects all of our taxes for us, and the law is very, very specific. State law is very specific about municipalities, and Dr. Peak was exactly right. The law says if your voters pass a tax that has a specific restriction, we are legally required to create a separate accounting fund and put all of that money into that fund and track every dollar in and every dollar out, and that's looked at by our auditors every year.
Okay, well, thank you. I've heard, and this person writes, I've heard that with new technology, you know what streets need to be paved, and I've heard something about this. Would you like to explain if there's new technology that tells you what streets need to be paved or what attention?
Sure. So back in 2013, the council approved what we call our pavement management program. And the pavement management program's foundation is we have an inventory of all the streets the city is responsible for maintaining. We know how many lanes are out there, whether it's concrete, asphalt. We know what type of street, what traffic volumes are to be carried on it. And we hired a firm called Infrastructure Management Systems. They own the technology. You may have seen the van driving around town, but it has a number of pieces of equipment on it that measures the amount of cracking in every street. It does rutting. It basically gives us an overall grade or assessment of every street in town. And we use that information basically to know where that street is in what we call the life cycle of pavement. Is it brand new? Is it starting to get into middle age, or is it getting kind of past its useful life? So we have that kind of baseline information on all the streets, and that's what we use on an annual basis as the starting point to recommend which streets we will work on that year. Another thing that gets plugged into that is how much money is available to work on the streets. We've varied from a high of $4.2 million to this past year of $3.375 million. So that's one variable. We also look at Is it near adjoining new projects? You know, for example, we're getting ready to rebuild Western Road, so we did some limited work out there. Sanger Road's another one that we've done some limited work because we knew I had a project in the pipeline. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it, but the basis is that technology and knowing where each street in the city stands in relation to another.
Okay. Now, I want to remind those of you who are watching this on television that if you think of a question and you wish you were here to ask, you can ask it. Our phone number is 405-332-6063. So phone in your question, and we will ask it of the panelists. The next question is dealing with the financial impact. This person says, what is the average financial impact to an individual of the 1/2 cent sales tax? Can you estimate that?
Well, I think that everybody can evaluate that individually, and here's why. And I don't mean that sarcastically. This is not a new tax. We are not asking the citizens to add a half-penny sales tax to what we have, not at all. We have been paying local sales tax in Stillwater since 2001, a grand total of 3.5% sales tax. The state collects 4.5%, and the county has a fraction. And we are not asking to change that 3.5 cents. The 1/2 cent that we are currently paying and have been paying for nearly 15 years has been paying for major street improvements. That expires in 2016. This vote is to say the day after that half-penny goes off, put it back on, so it's exactly the same tax you're paying today. So whatever sales tax you're paying today, if you vote yes, you'll continue to pay exactly the same sales tax, no more.
Okay, thank you.
Does that address
the question? Yes, it does address the question. This is not a new tax, then. It is an extension of the present 1/2 cent sales tax. If this ordinance is approved, will there be an annual review process? Who would like to answer that question?
And Jason Dr. Peak presents that to the City Council every year, and I can let him be more specific. But even though we've identified projects at the beginning of every fiscal budget year, will be presented to the City Council from Dr. Peak to say, of the identified projects that were approved by the taxpayers, here's the status. We need to spend this much to do the design and engineering on this street. We need to let a contract to start relocating the utilities on this other street, and we may be ready to start construction on another one. But the council will always have those reports, and the council will have the absolute authority to say, we want to guarantee that these projects are what the half-penny is intended for. So yes, it is reviewed every year, and probably more frequently than that, in that periodic reports will keep the public and the council advised of the status on every one of those projects. Isn't that pretty much accurate, Dr. Peak?
I guess a couple of things to kind of add to that, you know, in 2007, the Stillwater City Council adopted what was called the Transportation Enhancement Plan. That was a 30-year plan looking at transportation projects needed into this community. So that's one of the guiding documents we use to look at where major corridor widening type improvement projects are. There was also in 2009 the on-street bicycle plan and trail plan that was approved. So I mean, there's a list of projects in there. We've included some of those projects in our budget request in previous years. They haven't risen to the top as far as priority. But those are things that we continually reference for projects, because those are kind of the vision policy set by council that we look at, and it's done on an annual basis.
I think that Jason does get tired of me telling him how much I love his presentations, because they're always so organized, and he has great visuals. The maps that he does for us that we just saw one meeting ago, approving that plan. It's so nice to see visually, you know, there are roads, streets in every part of the city that are being planned for during the year. So it's not just one section of the city. There are different colors for what part of the pavement management system they're attached to. We do get very good information about what is proposed and what is planned. And I'll put a plug in always, we are responsible and we really want your input. Call us anytime, ask us what's coming up or what's not coming up.
Okay, well, this person asked, before the voting date, and I think this is maybe related to some of the things you were saying, but will the city either mail to voters or put in the newspaper pictures of the street or streets which are priority?
Well, I don't think we have time or the ability to mail something to every resident, but we certainly will have a list and description, and we have that we're going to put on our website, publish in the newspaper, every other list we can, so you'll be able to look and recognize that, for example, the half-penny sales tax was used to widen and improve 19th Avenue from westward to Country Club Road. That was a project that was paid for the half-penny. Widening Jardot from south, how far south did we go?
Went from 19th.
From 19th north to 6th, and then continuing on to McElroy. That widening project of Jardot was done with the half-penny. And there's a list of 10 or 12 other major streets that have been done. And we certainly will get that list published, maybe some pictures of them, but most people will recognize the streets when we list them, and we'll certainly do that.
Okay, thank you. This is a question in response to an answer to a question we asked earlier this evening. The earlier question about misuse of these funds by buying police cars or garbage trucks was not, this person writes, was not answered in a way that would satisfy that questioner, I suspect. He thought these vehicles might be snuck in by calling them transportation related. I am assured us that these, Dan assured us that these funds could only be used in transportation related items. He did not say it had to be used for streets, bridges, etc. What is the definition of transportation related?
We're talking about the construction of capital items, constructed physical facilities. This would include streets, it would include sidewalks, it would include traffic signals, it would include bike lanes, it would include hard physical constructed projects that are used to facilitate vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian transportation, primarily vehicle transportation. The vast majority is for streets. It will not be used for transportation vehicles. Vehicles are not a transportation facility. They are a transportation device. There's a difference. And we're talking about actual on-the-ground transportation structures that are designed to move people by transportation means.
I think if you're a person who likes to see things written down, look in the news press from today. And in the view of the news press, it has a nice description. An August resolution approved by the City Council designates the revenues to be used exclusively for transportation infrastructure and the 3 areas of improvement mentioned by Dr. Peak: asset management, or projects that repair, restore existing roads, bridges, and traffic signals; safety and mobility, projects like traffic signal timing, intersections, sidewalks; corridor improvements, or major roads, bridges, and intersection improvement projects. That's pretty.
In those definitions, absolutely do not include vehicles,
right,
whether they be police or trash or anything else. They do not include vehicles.
Do not include vehicles. Okay, thank you. And this question, and that it says, what does asset management mean and corridor improvement? You just sort of described that. Do you want to say anything more?
Sure. I just, what I like to talk to people about asset management is We have over 440 lane miles of pavement. We've got over 28 bridges, 64 signalized intersections. Those are all assets that make our transportation system work. So asset management means that we have a system in place to strategically invest and maintain the use of those systems. The pavement management program is a great example of that. It's not just council saying, I think you need to work on this street this year. Asset management means you kind of know the condition of all that, you know what factors are at play, and you make that based on a technical recommendation, and that gets presented to council, and of course they provide community input on that. But asset management means that we're trying to make sure that we're doing the best use of funds and maintaining those assets. The corridor improvements, that's a lot of what you saw out of the 2001 sales tax. It's asset management. We're restoring and repairing existing assets out there, but they're typically on mile-long sections of road, and we're typically also widening and adding capacity facilities for bikes and pedestrians, so it's all encompassing on the corridor improvements.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this question really says, the panel keeps pushing transportation issues when I feel, the writer says, the issue is taxation. This tax relieves general fund money that should be used for transportation without accountability. Why is this not explained?
Well, let me take a try at explaining this. And Dr. Peak was explaining our pavement management system, for example. And as he said, we have hundreds of miles of street in our city. Those streets that have some potholes and cracking, the pavement management system assesses those and says, we can repair those and smooth that surface and repair those damages and give that street 10 more years of life. We do use the operating budget for pavement management to repair and maintain all the streets that are in place with those kind of fixing potholes, sealing the cracks, a broken panel, cutting it out and replacing it. That is pavement management. We do appropriate, the council has set a goal, and we try every year in the general budget to appropriate $4 million for that purpose. This year it's a little less than 4 because there's been a downturn in our economy, but it's still well over $3 million. What we can't afford to do are large sections of road that not only are in bad shape, they're no longer wide enough to accommodate the traffic. And I think a good example, if I may, it answers several questions about listing projects that we're going to do. When the 2001 and the 2006 items, the halfpenny was passed, the street that we get the most complaints about today about being overcrowded, dangerous, you can't travel, you can't turn, was not on the list. And the reason is because we still didn't, in 2001, we still didn't have Lowe's, we didn't have Lakeview Point, we definitely didn't have Academy, we didn't have all of those businesses. What's happened, that growth that we didn't plan on has made Perkins from McElroy to Lakeview the #1 concern, one of the most dangerous streets and over controlled. That we can't do out of our operating budget. That we need the resources of the halfpenny sales tax to give us the ability to fix those kind of projects. There's a big difference between widening Lakeview for 6 blocks, or Perkins, as opposed to patching potholes and cracks on 3 miles of city street. And so the patching and maintenance is from our regular budget, and accommodating a complete reconstruction and improvement of a street is the halfpenny.
Okay, thank you.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, okay. Anything anyone wants to add? Okay. Okay, so this question is, what would be the effect of this small sales tax if not passed? What will this transportation sales tax, I think they mean. What would be the effect if this is not passed?
Well, I can let Dr. Peak address this in terms of the technical things, but here's something I said before the meeting. Again, it goes back to not having a crystal ball. All I know is I can guarantee you this. Whatever street in town that you would like to see fixed, I don't care what one it is, if this is not passed and the city has $6 million a year less to work with, it's going to be a lot longer before that street that you want fixed gets fixed. So the impact of not passing this means every street project in town is likely to be delayed until we can accumulate enough money to do it, which could be several years longer. This gives us the capability to address the most serious ones now.
Okay, anyone?
If that answers the question, Vice Mayor?
I'm fine with that, Dr. Peak.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Dan. I mean, and the Perkins Road is a great example. You know, we've partnered with the Oklahoma DOT on that project. They will be paying for 100% of construction, but the city is responsible for the design, utility relocation cost, and right-of-way acquisition. You know, so with a widening project and moving utilities, you know, you're easily buying 10 feet on each side of the road. And you think about that as a commercial corridor, just the land value alone out there, you know, we could be into millions of dollars just in right-of-way expense for that type of project. And so not having the half-cent definitely would mean that, you know, future budgets would have to consume a large portion of that to support it. So either asset manage it decreases, or other services that the city provides if that project was chosen as a priority.
Okay. Why do we have to pay for transportation through a sales tax? Is that the best way?
It's one way. We've been, again, it's not an increase in sales tax. We have been paying this tax. We think it's probably the least impact on people and their personal income is to just keep doing what we're doing and not increase your taxes. If we were to let this half penny expire by a no vote, and the public certainly has a right to do that, if the public continues to demand the improvements to the streets, the city will be forced to look at other ways to do that. We could come back to the voters and say, would you like to increase your property tax to pay for a new street? That's about the only other option we would have. So, you know, there's a real simple formula in that the city's government's job is to provide structures and services for the community. But our only source of funds to do that is the people in the community. We collectively have to take resources from the people to give something back to the people. And so if we reduce what we're given to work with, we'll have to reduce what we deliver back to the public. And it's just a real basic fact of government. And it's not that we want to take anything from people, but you can only give to the people what you first take the resources from the people to give it back to them. And we think this is in my opinion, continuing the half penny is the least financially painful way for our community to continue to have improved streets. Now, if the public chooses something else, if they vote no for this and say we would rather pay for it some other way, then the council will be faced with determining what that is.
This question came up yesterday at Councilor Coffee Hours, and I really liked Dr. Peak's answer to this too.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things to think about in paying for transportation, you know, if you drive the turnpike, you pay a toll fee, and that toll fee is kind of related to that cost of the infrastructure. You can't physically do that within a city system. So a sales tax is a good way of capturing the user cost. We have a lot of people that use our transportation system that are not residents of the city of Stillwater. So that sales tax revenue gets closer to a user fee. It's not, you know, one-to-one, but it's kind of a best estimate. The other thing is Dan was talking about property tax being another mechanism. It's important to remind people, you know, we live in a community where we have a lot of large tax-exempt institutions that own property. So the pro rata share of a property tax, you know, is paid more heavily by the other users in the community because of tax exemption.
And I sent an email to the city council today with reviewing some state law, and I just had to throw this out there because Oklahoma statutes give cities in the state another option. And I don't believe there's a city in the state that used it in Oklahoma. It's used in many, many states where I've seen it before. Some cities in the country have a motor vehicle registration tax, so that every year you have to come to the city and get a decal for your window and pay $30, $40, $50 a year for your vehicle. All of that money goes into a street fund. Now, I don't know of any city in Oklahoma that does that. Oklahoma statutes say cities may have people vote to do that. Mm-hmm. But I know Missouri did that for years and years. I live close to Missouri, not in Missouri, but had a lot of relatives there, and they paid their local city registration tax for their vehicle every year, and that created a street fund. So, but it's traditionally not what Oklahoma has done. Traditionally, Oklahoma does this with existing sales tax or property tax.
Okay. This is a financial question. This must be a mathematician. Am I correct in thinking that if a person spent $5,000 each year on taxable items, they would be paying $25 for transportation that year?
It's pretty good math. I think that's probably pretty close.
Okay.
0.5%. As I mentioned a while ago, if you buy $100 worth of groceries, that's 50 cents. 1% is $1, and 0.5% is 50 cents. So you're paying that today. And we're not asking you to pay any more. Same amount.
Okay. Thank you. What is planned to make streets more walkable?
Sure. So a couple.
You want your mic? Somebody's not hearing you.
Okay.
Well,
I don't.
Should be press that till it's green.
It's green. So is that better? Okay. Sorry about that. You guys need me to repeat everything I've already said? Okay, so we're talking about walkable, what are we doing to make things more walkable in town? So, some of the things we're doing is we've changed the way that we're actually designing projects. Talk a little bit about the Perkins Road Improvement Project. That was a stakeholder kind of driven process, how we came up with a concept out there. That include pedestrians, cyclists, business owners, landowners, OSU Transit, public safety, Oklahoma DOT, and looking at all the different user needs. We in the Transportation Department recognize that we have a high demand in this community for non-vehicle modes of travel. We've started the discussion with council about getting some policy guidance, what may be a complete streets policy or some other type of transportation policy that would define how we deliver each of those projects. But I'd say we're committed as we deliver projects to include pedestrian facilities.
And I think the other thing with that is the other assurance is, I think the city's recognized that outside of our transportation program and our land use and development codes, any properties that are developed in our city, new development, they are required to construct sidewalk along the street, again, recognizing that we have a growing need for pedestrian access. And the city certainly complies with that ordinance as well when we construct our streets. So every street project that we construct and every street project that a private developer is required to do will include pedestrian facilities.
Okay.
I hope if this person who wrote the question and anyone else who's interested in this topic will keep track of the agenda. I think we are talking about complete streets in December.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so, complete streets?
Kind of a policy describing what Jason.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, all right. Now, this question. If approved, how can the voters be assured that the administration and council will not take general appropriated dollars away from the transportation budget like it did previous to the past 2 budget years?
Well, I do know that this year when the budget came out, it was a little bit less, proposed to be a little less than what we had asked and committed to, and we came down pretty hard on Mr. Galloway, and he changed it. So, if we think about continuity on the council, Mayor Noble will be here for 3 years. I have another year and a half. Miguel has a year and a half. Elaine has, if she is reelected, will have 3 years. And so we'll have good continuity of councilors. And we're counting on you citizens. Keep us honest.
You know, as I mentioned, the council adopted kind of a policy of sorts 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, saying our goal is to let's try to budget $4 million per year for our street maintenance and keep our streets, our assets improved. Prior to that, typically there would be $200,000 or $300,000 in the budget for patching material and crack filling, and we weren't doing a very good job. But the reason we adopted this goal is with the pavement management system, where we have evaluated every foot of every street in town, we now know exactly where the money can go to make the streets last the longest and save us the most. And so that's where we made the commitment. We now have a tool that Dr. Peak and his staff can use to make sure we're putting the money in the right place. And I think it was a great policy to set that goal. And I think, and I'm sure that we'll put that $4 million every year. But as we talked this year, is sometimes if you have a downturn in revenues, everything gives a little. We had to cut expenses, we budget for several departments, and we trimmed a little bit off the $4 million, but we wound up with well over $3 million in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Will the elected council, and perhaps this goes to you, get to approve the priority of roads to be repaired, or is that only an administrative decision? I suppose you all could address that.
Sure. So, what I'd say is council has the final authority and approve it. We make recommendations to council through council meetings. As Councilor Darlington referenced 2 weeks ago, we presented the recommendation of the list of streets for what we call the FY16 pavement management project. And so that's, when we do our technical analysis of the streets that we see need work, we present that to council, and definitely council can give us direction to say, well, why are you working on that street? We think you should work on something else, and they have the final say on that.
I do wish my brain were in the younger stage, like a new road. A lot of cracks here. I can't remember exactly what that was, but I would certainly go home and look at it if anybody wanted to see the projects.
And then the other thing I would add is part of the annual budget process, and speaking specifically of the half-cent transportation funds, there is a specific list of projects that are in the annual budget included with that recommendation that council approves. And going back to what Councilor Darlington said earlier, we start that budgeting process. We'll start here in a couple of months, and we have public forums. We ask people to show up, give us your feedback on what you think the priorities are, and that gets reflected in the budget. So it's important to participate.
Absolutely, we have a very responsive mayor and city council, and I know this sounds old, but it's important if you value what's going to be done for streets that you care about or anything else the city does. The best we can do is say, please look at our website, look at posted agendas. It tells you in those agendas the city council on Monday night will vote on these 4 street projects. And if you as a citizen see one of those and say, wow, I don't think that street needs it, there's something more important, call your mayor, call your council members. I guarantee they will listen to you. And that's how you make a difference. Mm-hmm. They make the decision, but they need to hear from the people that live in this community, and they will respond to those calls, I guarantee you.
Yes, it's actually one of the most fun parts of this volunteer job, is talking to people and hearing different perspectives. Everybody's got a different story, everybody's got different priorities, everybody has a little different view, and it's only when we can all put that together that we're going to come out as great as we can be. So we enjoy hearing from you, and we love to hear suggestions, new ways of thinking about things.
And this relates to that. This person says, what is the procedure to report problems such as roads that need repair, like you're driving down the street and you see a pothole? Whom do you call? What is the procedure?
There's a couple of ways. You can just simply call the switchboard number at City Hall, which is
372-0025.
And you can call the Transportation Department and report it, and we will get back to you. We will take it into consideration. They do a great job. We have another system for those people who like to use cell phones or the computer. We have a system called SNAP. Stillwater, I can't remember the acronym, Needs Assessment. But it's a simple project where if you see a pothole, you can go, if you have a cell phone that has that information, or go to your computer and you say, this is 506 Gabriel Street, there's this big pothole, and you put that on the system. Our people monitor the system. We'll get that complaint to the traffic department. They will go out and put it on their system to be repaired, and you can even set it up to get an email when we get it fixed to tell you we got it done. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but just call City Hall, look us up in the phone book. 372-0025 is a switchboard, and they'll get you to the right people, and we will get it looked at and respond.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this question. Stillwater has a large percent of its population living in OSU facilities, and yet they use, I guess OSU, use our streets, sidewalks, and bike paths more than our elder population. Is this the most fair way for students to pay their fair share?
I think the previous question about whether you should, should you pay for roads with sales tax, as Mr. Galloway and Dr. Peak explained, that is the most fair way. I mean, if we were using a property tax bond to pay for roads, a large half of our population would not be paying for the streets. So, they're living in our city, they're eating, they're going to bars, they're buying their clothes, they're doing all kinds of things, giving us sales tax.
And we also have a lot of help from people coming into town. You have to remember that, it's like this time of year, I think you see the big crowds going to the stadium at OSU, and we have 30 or 40,000 people or more come into town for the game.
50, 60.
They pay sales tax on the football stadium tickets, and they pay a sales tax on the food they buy there, and they pay sales tax at anywhere they stop in town. So they're all helping. They're driving on our streets, but they're helping pay for it before they leave. That's a nice thing about the sales tax as well.
Okay, thank you. A question. Why was 19th Street east of Western Road repaved when it has little traffic and has dirt fields on both sides?
Sure. So that's part of our pavement management program. That street was adjacent to Walnut Street there, which serves a mobile home park as well as a subdivision. Walnut Street was in need of reconstruction, and 19th Avenue, the street right adjacent to it, was reaching a point in need of reconstruction. So when we let the contract, we get better prices with larger projects. A contractor can mobilize once in that area. And so it makes sense sometimes to partner with a street that people may see doesn't receive a lot of traffic, but in its life cycle, it's at a point that needs to be replaced. So it was replaced as part of also the Walnut project. And that contract also included Monroe Street between 6th Avenue and 9th Avenue was one of the reconstruction projects. So it's important to remember the pavement management program isn't one specific street. We typically average 40 to 50 lane miles of work throughout town through that annual pavement management project. The current project that's going on right now, we reconstructed Maple Street between Duck and Main Street. That was a street in need of reconstruction. We're working over in Redbud and some of the streets east of Perkins right now. And this spring, or I'd say later this year, McElroy Road east of Jardo to city limits will be reconstructed. And those are all streets identified in the pavement management program. So while you may only see one street being worked on, like I said, there's typically 40 to 50 lane miles of work going on in a given year with that $3 to $4 million of allocation.
I think an interesting thing about the Monroe project from 6th to 9th, not only does it provide a smooth driving surface, but the reconstruction of that road just changed how the whole neighborhood looked. It has a real aesthetic quality of life piece to it also.
You know, and we take a much closer look at the streets and the street people do than what we see as casual observers, citizens like you and me. And streets like 19th, for example, was asked about. What we don't realize is if there's a pothole there, and our guys can do the best job in the world at fixing it, but we know because of the surrounding conditions, we're going to be back in a few months, another pothole right next to it. It's not going to hold because the conditions beneath it are so bad. So what the pavement management system does basically says what you're going to spend in repairs over the next 10 years, you're still going to have a patchwork street, and it's going to cost you almost as much as just going ahead and rebuilding it now. And so actually redoing streets like that over the next 15 years is going to save the taxpayer money. You keep patching patches, and that's the most expensive way to keep a street being driven on. You reach a point where it's much more cost effective to resurface. That's a layman's term, Jason.
Yeah.
And probably it'll be more expensive to do anything later.
You always have, you know, cost escalation with construction.
How can the public find out where each project is in the process of being implemented?
Yeah, we have a project page on the city website for the major capital projects, basically a listing of that, and our staff has been updating those on a regular basis. So I think, you know, if you go to the City of Stillwater website and you look at your sales tax dollars at work as kind of the tab you want to click on, it will take you to the project links and you can get a status there.
Okay, thank you. Now, we have about 10 minutes left, so if you're listening on the television and you want to call, the number again is 405-332-6063. Call in and we'll ask your question of the panelists. Okay, next question. On 9th Street, the bicycle lanes have been arranged to such a wide width, it is dangerous to pass a biker when an oncoming car exists. How can trucks or buses use 9th Street with this scenario?
So I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but what I'd explain is we have added bike lanes on 9th Avenue just west of Duck, approximately, I believe, to Washington is where they end. It was part of a pavement management work, and they're standard width bike lanes. So a car can be in the travel lane and pass a biker who's in the bike lane. But as you continue west, past that intersection, we have what are called edge lines. Those are not bike lanes, even though they're set maybe about 3 feet off the edge of pavement. So a cyclist would actually be riding in the travel lane, and then if a truck or vehicle was behind that cyclist and were to pass them, you know, they would be crossing the double yellow line to do that. So I would say the bike lanes, you know, they allow for people to safely pass cyclists in conformance with the law, whereas the other parts of the section that we haven't done work on don't really facilitate that.
And I think and I really appreciate what Dr. Peak's saying, and we've talked about this quite a bit because we have started using some bike lanes in town. It's created a little bit of confusion. Edge markings, which are most generally used on highways that you're outside of town, you notice there's always a white line so you can see the edge of the road. We have some of those on streets in town. It's just to remind you where the edge of the road is. It's not a designated bike lane, but people are getting confused whether it's a bike lane or not a bike lane. And for example, we just did some restriping on Western South 6th, and the contractor put the edge marks there. Well, it wasn't wide enough to be a safe bike lane, and people said the bike lanes are too narrow, and it created a lot of confusion. That's why we took those edge marks off. The street wasn't really wide enough to accommodate all full bike lanes, and so it was confusing. So we took those off, and some people said, why'd you remove the bike lanes? We didn't. They weren't bike lanes to begin with. They were edge marks that were confusing people. So we're really trying to do some education in that area and make sure we carefully mark our streets to not create that confusion.
Okay, thank you. One of our callers asked, did this tax cover the cost for the recent striping changes, crosswalk media changes on Duck on Duck Street and downtown roundabout?
No.
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay. Will the public be involved in making decisions about anything this tax goes to?
Absolutely. Like I said, our typical project approach is to include people early on in the decision-making process so that we're headed down the right path with these projects, so they have input then. Like I said, we've got a number of planning documents out there that were developed prior to 2010. We'll need to update those, so that's another chance for public engagement. And then, like I said before, annually we go through a budgeting process. So it's important for people to show up and participate and let us know, because that's another way to be engaged in how these projects are delivered.
I just can't overemphasize. Nobody does city council or an elected position unless you like people. We don't want to do this in a vacuum. We didn't do this to just be one person making decisions or 5 people making decisions. We like to hear from you. That's why we do this. So please, let us hear from you.
And this caller asked, why can't the street lights be timed so traffic flows better? The delays are too long.
They can be, and we're working on that, is what I would tell you. The council invested through the half-penny sales tax program last year to purchase what's called a traffic signal management system. What the investment in that system is about $300,000. Allows us to do is actually communicate between the signals so we can get them in sync and timing. We've currently been working on Perkins Road. The timing's out there. This year we have in the budget basically to work on Main Street, Hall of Fame, and 6th Avenue to improve the signal timings along those corridors.
Okay, thank you. It's been suggested that this special election be postponed to the February City Council election to save money and to give more time to understand this. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, it can't, I mean, it's set now, right?
It is set, but I believe we also have a franchise election this fall, and so we were going to have the expense of an election because of the franchise election for natural gas was due. So it didn't cost us any additional. In fact, when a utility company, a private utility company, when we have a franchise election, they pay for the election expense. So ONG will be paying this election expense, and there's 2 items on the ballot. They're paying it because their franchise is on the election, but we also have the half penny on the election. So it's a very cost-effective time to have it.
Okay, good. And I want to get this caller's question in. I think you alluded to this. What is the backup plan to address road issues if this does not pass?
Sure. I think the backup plan is, it's what we do on an annual basis. We work with the budget that we have, and so as Dan alluded to, some projects may take longer to deliver without this half-cent fund.
And it's another reason why we, and I did, and staff did, recommend to council that we have the election soon, this fall, because there's a year left of collecting the half penny. And if this were to fail, it gives council and the city staff time to say, here's an optional plan. We need to come back to the public and say, if you didn't want to pay for it that way, what do you want? And we need time to develop that alternative plan in the event that it should not pass. So it's being cautious.
Okay, well, this is really concludes our forum for this evening, but we appreciate the panelists giving your time for these questions, and so I'd like to thank Vice Mayor Pat Darlington, City Manager Dan Galloway, and Director of the Department of Transportation, Dr. Jason Peak. I would also like to thank the City of Stillwater for their facilities and all of you who participated with questions this evening. And don't forget to vote on Tuesday, November the 10th. You can also vote early, Thursday, November 5th, and Friday, November 6th at Payne County Election Board on the 2nd floor of the County Administration Building at the corner of 6th and Duck in Stillwater. Remember to bring your photo ID. And if you still have questions that haven't been answered, you may be able to have office hours with City councilors, would you like to tell us when they are?
Sure, we've had council office hours all week. We've called them coffee hours. And tomorrow morning, we're going to kind of bilocate. Dr. Peak and I will be at the bagel shop on Main Street and at Panera from 8 to 9:30. It will be interesting just to see us in two different locations at the same time, so do come.
Okay, thank you. If you have questions about your voting precinct site, you may phone the election board at 405-747-8350 or check the League of Women Voters website, www.lwv.stillwater.org. Thank you, and good night.
It's 8 o'clock.
Regular meeting of Tuesday, September 15, 2015, of Stillwater Planning Commission. Item 2A, Monopoly Brothers LLC preliminary plat, requesting review and approval of preliminary plat of 27-acre parcel, address 1798 North Payne Street, to create 133 residential lots. We received a memo to postpone this item to October 20th, 2015. Is here a motion?
Move to postpone. Second.
Motion passes. Item 2B, Robert Kearns map amendment rezoning, requesting review and approval to rezone a portion of the property address 799 East Mercury Avenue from IG to NTZ neighborhood transition zoning and CS commercial shopping.
Good evening, Patty Evans, Development Services. This is a map amendment for the property shown here in the hatched area. You can see it used to be one piece, this whole gray area here, and we had a minor sub recently on it, and he's divided it into 3 parcels. And this parcel here has already gone through a map amendment to CS, commercial shopping. So just keep that in mind, even though that's not on here. The ordinance, I don't know if it's gone through and you know, the 30-day publication period and all that to get to our GIS. That's why it's not shown on this map. This is Perkins Road here and Mercury, and this is Marine. The property to the north is RTM, that's Aspen Heights, and like I said, this is CS. CS down here at the corner, RSS to the south. This is Ag, and this is Industrial, IG. This area, as you can see, has, or probably know, has been undergoing a transition lately with the RTM that used to be industrial, and so it's changed and developed. This corner has been developed now, and with this changing to a different zoning. So it is in a transition period. Well, let me go back. The north parcel, he is requesting CS, commercial shopping, the same as this little piece over here. And the south is a new zoning designation that we have. It's NTZ, and that is neighborhood transition zone. And with that neighborhood transition zone, it's a step down from, or step up, I guess, from any neighborhoods or any platted residentially zoned RSS or RSL neighborhoods. With the NTZ zoning designation, it only allows single family, 2-family, or duplexes and townhomes. So it does meet or is compatible with the C3 plan. But the CS, or the commercial, is not compatible with the C3 plan. And that is low-density residential is the land use, that's future land use. The NTZ zoning district is appropriate for the south parcel due to the adjacent platted RSS zoning district. And the areas to the north and west have changed in the last several years to commercial and multifamily residential areas, so it is undergoing a transition. Are there any questions?
I have a couple. Patty, if you could bring that map back up. I assume on that map that the black line denotes the two different parcels. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the division.
Do you have just a rough idea how many feet that is from the back of the RSS zoning to for that parcel that would be the NTZ?
It's probably about 120 or 140 roughly, because if you put duplexes on there or a single-family home, it has to be, I believe, 100 or 120 feet deep lots.
Okay. So, I mean, that's all hypothetical, but there would be probably some type of a road that would transition the two properties.
Right.
So
they
the
could
commercial
have
would even set even farther.
Single-family, conventional single-family, or the duplexes or townhomes in here.
Okay.
And then.
Any other questions? Thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Anybody that'd like to speak in favor of this map amendment? State your name and address. I appreciate it.
Roger Gose, 113 East State, here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Kearns. That distance, 165. 165? Yeah, and that's based on like a center line of a street, and then lot depth, I think, of 120 feet. So, we're trying to do this NTZ zone, which was just approved, and it would not allow townhouses because of the abutting property, but it'll work here. That's why we're bringing that to you as an option. And the CS, we're just trying to get some zoning that will be allowed on that piece of industrial land that got overridden by the comprehensive plan. Any questions? Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak in favor of this? Anybody that'd like to speak against this map amendment? Anybody like to speak against this map amendment? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing.
Okay, the alternatives are to accept the findings and recommend to the City Council to approve the map amendment, or to find that the map amendment is not an appropriate use and recommend denial, or to continue or table until we have more information or discussion. Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
My only question was, since the NTZ is approved but not finalized, is there anything that would change should the final, in terms of before finalization of this?
It was, the second reading was done last night, and it was published today.
Oh, okay.
So basically, we're just having to wait that 30 days, and it's done.